Up.
So, I mean, Billy, what do you make of this recent stretch? Offensively, it's a relatively similar group to last year. Why do you think the group has been so much more inconsistent than we saw a year ago?
Well, I think you kind of touched on it with the word recent. There's times of the year where you overperform, in 10-game, 15-game stretches, and there's times where you underperform in those stretches. And so it's kind of striking the balance there, and not kind of succumbing to the recency bias, but kind of taking a step back and trying to look at it, from a 10,000-foot view. And, I believe in this roster. I believe in this team and the players, that are here. And so it's just, there's too much track record. There's too much these guys have accomplished. There's too much know-how. And we've seen glimpses where the offense breaks out, and then we've seen glimpses where it hasn't all converged. And the club, the club's really built on the length of the lineup, and it's really built to kind of pass the baton and put ourselves in good positions to succeed. So, when you have a club that's disciplined in the batter's box, and that can make contact, when you get players in scoring position and you get those opportunities, I mean that lends itself to run scoring. And so I have the utmost confidence these guys are going to break out. With Starling, kind of coming into camp with a little bit of a little bit of a governor on him and how much he could do right away. I've seen glimpses, and there's some underlying things that we'll look at from a process standpoint that might point to who's lucky on the team right now, or who's getting good fortune in the batter's box and who's not. And he's one of the players that's been kind of flagged as being a little unlucky for his expected stats versus his actual stats. And that's just looking at stuff that's out in the public space too. And so I have the utmost confidence in him. His track record, his know-how. This is a special talent. He's going to figure it out.
You guys were pretty aggressive in promoting Beatty when he showed that he deserved it. Vienna's obviously having a good season down there too. What is kind of the decision to not bring him up?
One of the things that we do is always just solicit the opinion to the people that are going through. I'm talking to our AAA staff or our coordinator staff as they go through Syracuse. I actually talked to Beltran last night. I'm going to send him through there right now too. And so you want to look at like all of the objectives and all of the things that like drive the player plan and what you need to see from the player. And so and there's also some other things that kind of come into the calculus. How much can you play the guy? What kind of usage? What kind of roles would you have for him at the major league level? And you're trying to balance that. Balance that with some lost development opportunity if they're not going to play all that much. So it's just something that is definitely on our radar and something we're thinking about. But I just wait for the feedback from the group as they go through Syracuse.
I guess not any further about when Ronnie plays you to a new position, and at what point do you say, okay, it's time to start feeling?
Yeah, the feedback I got this morning, I was on a call with all the coordinators, player development coordinators, and the feedback I got from Miguel Cairo was really strong. At second base, will there be a time when we introduce something else? Perhaps, but try to take a systematic approach to this and not get them too much too soon, because that can start to carry over in the offense. What we were seeing early with Ronnie was really good decision making in the batter's box, really low chase percentages, for his accustomed level, and swinging at balls when they were over the white, and that's just what we really want to drive. And when you introduce multi-positions and things, that can start to pull away from that a little bit. So we want to make sure it's a systematic approach. And ultimately, we would like to build more flexibility into him. Sure, but I think at some point in time, I want to have that conversation with him, one-on-one before we speak about it publicly.
Billy, generally, how do you balance, just as an overall thought process, the development of players and making sure they hit all their check marks down in the minors versus the needs of the club up here and potentially, rounding out some of that development up in the big leagues?
Well, bring a player up, you want them to have success, because there can even be circumstances where players, have to go back down because of other roster considerations, maybe when they don't even deserve to. And so, you want to make sure that if that happens, that they're going down with with a good taste in their mouth. But you want to try to stay away from bringing a guy up and bringing the guy up too early, and then having to send him back down. You try to think about all the players in baseball over the years, and try to think about who never got options. It's a small list. You've got Griffin Jr. and Machado, and but I remember talking to Jeter about this in the past. Like, he got options. It's you prefer to be able to get a guy up here, give him the footing, give him the runway, and then let them soar. And so you're balancing a number of things before you do that.
What have you seen from Max so far? Obviously he's coming off a rough start there, and the issue with the rosin. Are you confident that he can work through this, or is it something that's concerning at all, given the mileage that he's?
I'm confident in Max. One of the things that I've seen, if you ask me what I've seen, I've seen really irregular work. Right? I've seen 100 pitch outing at the end of spring, trickle into whether it was 90 or 95 that first start in Miami, and then 95 or 98 in the next start, and then a lot of irregular days and kind of pitch counts. And so when you do that, when a guy moves down to 0 because of lingering soreness and he misses time, and then he goes and he pitches 50, and then he gets removed or ejected from the game, and then he has to endure a 13-game suspension. When you just kind of like graph that out a little bit, it looks turbulent. And so what you're looking for is a little bit smoother kind of takeoff, so that he can get to 30,000 feet. One of the things I know he talked about in that last outing was velocity. I think that was one of the things that he brought up. This year, we've seen him average 93.8 going into that start the other day in Detroit, and he was over a mile an hour below that in that start in Detroit. And we've seen him max out his peak velocity this year at 97.1. So it's there. It's just a matter of getting the consistency and just getting that trajectory and that cadence of pitching every 5th, every 6th day. So no, I'm not worried about Max.
How do you feel about the performance of the rotation as a whole through 32 games?
I mean, that's been the part of our club that's probably hasn't put up the numbers that they've expected, or that we've expected. And so with that group, I can tell you this, sitting here today on May 5th, we weren't expecting to use 22 pitchers, within the first month of the season. I think we've used the second most in baseball. And so, you prepare for that. And one of the things that we always talk about in the wintertime is building the depth. And, you're not foreseeing like that you're going to have to use it the first 30 days of the season. You're kind of thinking, around this time of year, you'd probably be more in the 15, 16 pitcher usage area. So, but I'll tell you what, the optimism, or there's reason for optimism. We've got Max back, we've got Justin back. We're looking at Carlos here pretty soon. I mean, he's fighting a stomach bug right now, so I think that's going to push back a rehab start, which is unfortunate. But we're looking at him, and then one of the things I told Petey when we went down, I said, there's a couple things for you to work on, but by and large, like the strikeouts, the walks, the things that really drive performance, they're there. And so go down and get this stuff ironed out, but also it's going to be a competition here. I mean, that's what we want. We want to have it. We want to have a number of places to go in that rotation, and so there's optimism that getting that group back, getting the help, that they'll get cruising out.
Who would you like to see Peterson do in Syracuse?
I'm gonna kind of keep that, internal conversations that we have. So, he knows what those are. They've been articulated to him. I have no doubt that he's gonna be able to do it because he's shown he has in the past.
You know when and where that rehab start will be for Carrasco?
I don't yet. No. I'll go check in. I haven't checked in with the training staff yet to kind of get a status update on today.
Do you just view this 500 start to the season as more of a concern because of the large payroll and the expectations of the season?
No. I mean, like I said, there's ebb and flow to the season. There's times where you overperform. There's times where you underperform. But I believe in this club. I believe in the players on it. These guys will get to the point where they're at their true talent level, and we have no doubts about that. And we've got all the resources here to make it happen. We've got a great coaching staff. We got people that care, and you know, sometimes that can put you at a point where you try to do a little too much. And so I think the important thing is that the players, that everybody stays present. You know what I mean? Like just every single pitch, every single at bat, every single inning, it's got a life of its own. It's got a history and a life of its own. You just let that happen, and then once it's done, it's done. You got to put it to bed, put it to rest. It's over. And so you just try to focus on what the day brings. Today, the day brings the Rockies, and that's all we're thinking about right now.
Vogelback has done really well at reaching base, maybe not the power numbers he's accustomed to. To what extent are you satisfied or dissatisfied with your DH production overall?
Well, look, I like getting on base. We like hitting the ball hard too. He's aware of that, but the quality of at bats, you know, he makes you work, and you know, we've seen the impact from him in the past, and so you know, I have no doubt that he's going to be able to get that back.
You're 32 games in the season now. How far into the season do you have to get before you get a good feel for the strengths and weaknesses of this specific team versus what you had last year?
Yeah, I mean, not to hijack a comment, but I remember, you know, when I was a lot, you know, probably 20 years ago now, I remember, you know, listening to Billy Eppler talk a little bit about how he judges the season. And he looks at the seasons in thirds, you know, and so you take his club to about Memorial Day to kind of assess, and then you know, I think, you know, to completely hijack his saying, but you know, then you look at the next third, and you kind of use that time period to see what you can fix, and then you know, the last third is pushing the pedal all the way down, and so try to look at the season in thirds, but you know, at the end of the day, we're always monitoring, you know, some of the underlying process things that are going to drive performance, and trying to ascertain like the quality of guys' stuff on the mound. If they're able to make the pitch do what they wanted to do, when they wanted to do it, and then the decision making in the batter's box, and the decision making on the bases in the field. And, you know, it's a club with a lot of experience. It's a club with a lot of know-how. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the continuation. These guys get it.
What have you thought of Brady Alvarez so far?
I thought they've been great. I thought they've really taken every opportunity they've been given. They're playing with a lot of passion, a lot of energy. They care. There's a lot of purpose behind what they're doing. So, been very pleased with them so far.
Along those same lines, just from a workload perspective, do you want those guys, see those guys play every day? You know, how do you kind of balance getting kind of everyone looks and those guys having, you know, memorable time or time up here at the big league level?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, bless you. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is get them as much repetition and get them as much opportunities as possible. Because, like I was saying earlier, you know, you have to kind of weigh, you know, promotions with the opportunity cost. And if they're not going to play regularly, you're losing development time and you're losing development opportunities. Because those objectives, they carry with you. You know, you bring the same objectives that you had in AAA or AA or whatever as players progress, and they carry with you up here. And so they still have to be addressed, and they still have to be worked on, they still have to be thought of. And so, you know, you want to make sure they're out there playing. You know, and so that's kind of top of mind for us.
How do you view Eduardo as the first right now?
You know, I know Buck's talked about that, and actually Eduardo's talked a lot about that because he's a complete pro and a complete stand-up guy, and he's willing to contribute however Buck sees fit, and however, you know, he factors in on a day-to-day basis, and you know, he's been very supportive of Brett and very supportive of the team. He wants to see us win, and he wants to contribute, and that comes from a pure place. He's a really genuine, you know, good guy and professional player. And so, you know, a couple, you know, maybe about a week ago, coming off the bench and a homer, you know, getting these opportunities when he gets them, but always staying prepared. And that's one of the things he's messaged, you know, both to me, which he hasn't really needed to, because, you know, I don't call his number in a particular game, but I know he's messaged it to me and he's messaged it to Buck, and the guy cares. And, you know, that's kind of part of the package and part of, you know, what the calculus was to sign him and bring him in here. Is, you know, there's people that are successful and there's people that are successful and significant, right? And you know, how I define that or how we define that is, you know, does he make people around him better? And I think people around Eduardo are better because he's around him.
Coming into the season, you had lost Diaz, which was a huge loss. But the bullpen still remains a strength on this team. Can you talk about that? How that happened?
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things that we were talking about, you know, prior to the WBC was, you know, having 5 high leverage relievers. You know, right now with Brooks, Rayleigh on the IL as well, that's kind of 3. But some guys are emerging. You know, like what we've seen out of Brigham so far, and so, you know, he might be getting, you know, a little bit more of a serving of that, you know, that leverage opportunity. But you know, ultimately we'll get Brooks back. We expect that should be about a minimum placement in our mind, at least as we sit here today. But yeah, losing Edwin, yeah, that's a big thing because, you know, you can kind of think about circumstances where, you know, we can use in a particular game 4 high leverage relievers, but very proud of how this group's been and how this group's done. And one of the things I talked to Buck about with David Robinson was, you know, Robbie can pitch in big spots. You know, you personally have witnessed it, and his track record's shown that. And so, you know, with the right handling, Buck does a tremendous job handling the bullpen. One of the best I've seen. So he's not gonna push a guy down too much too early. And you know, they kind of pay us back in kind with good performance. So you know, always look to make the club better, and if opportunities present themselves where we can add and get back to 5 high leverage relievers, you know, we're going to seize that opportunity if it comes.
All right.